Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today we are doing my August reading wrap up. I read 8 books in the month of August, which is kind of serendipitous since it's the 8th month of the year. It's been a really weird month for me. There's only 2 books that I have devoured, only 2 books that I felt completely entertained while reading. I've enjoyed majority of the books I've read, do not get me wrong. But there's only 2 books that I felt I have really just fully enjoyed, devoured, read really quickly. Everything else, it's taken me like at least 5 days to read. And I'm just not like that normally. I don't know what's been going on this month. I don't know if it's because, listen, I've finally gotten into Animal Crossing. I've played it for ages, but I'm finally into it now, and I've been designing my island and I've been spending a lot of time doing that. So that might be why. Anyway, let's just get into the books that I read this month. Oh, also nothing went to plan. I had a full series I was going to read. Actually 2 full series I was going to read. One of them I managed to read 2, and the other series didn't even touch. In fact, let's just pull up the books that I pulled in my TBR jar video, and let's see the books that I actually read. It's not being good. It's really not. My summer TBR, technically I finished, but I did DNF the last 2 books. But I did at least attempt to read all of them, so I'm calling that a win. Anyway, let's start off with the first book that I read this month, and that is The Air by Sophie Lark. So this book has been on my TBR since last November. Maybe the November before. Really enjoyed the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark, so I wanted to read this one because it's a continuation. This is now being republished and traditionally published as just Kingmaker's Year 1. Hate that. I hate that it's just Year 1, 2, 3, 4 and graduation. I like these. These make sense. The Air makes sense as a title. The Bully makes sense as a title. I haven't read it yet, but it makes sense. Anyway. So I was lucky enough to get these still when they were indie published, because they kind of match, they're bigger than, but they kind of match the versions of the Brutal Birthright series that I've got. So I did want to read this whole series this month. That did not happen because I think I just picked it up when I wasn't fully in the mood for it. I rated this one a 3.5 stars and I've given it a 2 on the spice scale. It wasn't as spicy as I thought it was going to be. So in this book, you've got 3 point of views. We've got Leo and Anna, and we've also got Dean. So we find out at the end of the last series there's been a betrayal between 2 families. So now Leo and Dean are like mortal enemies because of their parents. They haven't done anything to each other, but Dean is holding a grudge on behalf of his dad. So they're all going to Kingmakers, and of course his family is very worried because Dean will probably try to kill him. Yeah, I will say I was slightly disappointed by this book. I just felt like the characters were rather immature. But they are also only 18, so I kind of have to give them grace for that. I love the school setting. It felt like Hogwarts but for mafia. And I love the school setting and the academia part of the story. I just wasn't very convinced by the love story. Even though like they're best friends. The reason why is because they are not blood related cousins, okay? But they are technically cousins. They're just not blood related, they're cousins by marriage. And both of them constantly bring up the fact that they are cousins, and it made me feel icky. So that made me, at one point I was really rooting for Dean and Anna, to be honest. And then Dean got a bit rapey, so I don't like Dean at all, and he's the next book. Like he's book 3. Okay, I then went on to read The Rebel because I was still convincing myself I was going to binge read this series this month. I rated this one a 4 stars. I liked it more. I actually felt that like there was chemistry between the characters, between Miles and Zoe. I do love them both. Zoe is in a horrible predicament where she is in an arranged marriage with another mafia family, and the person she is betrothed to is just an outright psychopath. He's disgusting. There's something inherently wrong about him. Just, yeah, he really gives serial killer vibes. I'm fairly sure he harmed animals as a child. I'm fairly sure his own mother is scared of him. I don't think his parents even love him. Like, he is just a disgusting man. The things he does to her in this book, he is vile. And then we've got Miles, who is, whose cousin is he? Is he Anna's or Leo's cousin? Or both of their cousins, maybe. At least, right, you get all the family trees at the beginning of the book, which really does help. Right, bear with. So Anna and Miles, definitely cousins by blood, because Callum and Nessa are siblings. Miles and Leo are full cousins because Sebastian Gallo and Ada Gallo. Right, okay. So Miles is the cousin of both Leo and Anna, but blood related this time. He's like a little entrepreneur. He is the rebel. He is not there for the rule. He's got his own agenda about being in the school. He's not really wanting to be in the mafia at all. He's wanting to make something of himself. And but like how he goes about things, he's his own little mafia within the school, just without the violence. He's like just like a dealer of anything you could possibly want that you can't get your hands on in the school. He's dealing. Like, I don't know, he is incredibly smart, very street smart, very business minded. And he witnesses one of the horrible things that Zoe's betrothed, I don't know his name, I don't care to remember it, but that her fiance is doing. And he gets this like protective like need to get her out of this contract. Yeah, I really haven't written much for this, I'll be honest with you. And a lot of what I've written is spoilers, so I can't tell you much, but I just enjoyed this one more. I believed in the romance more. Again, love the school setting. And I feel like we got to really, I think the longer we'll be in the books, the longer we're in this school, we're just gonna feel more ingrained into the story. But yeah, it was fun. Then I read Bonded by Thorns by Elizabeth Helen and hated myself for not reading it sooner, but also for forgetting that it's not on Kindle Unlimited like I thought it was, so that I could continue it straight away, because I had to wait for the rest of the series to come, because it's not on Kindle Unlimited. This ended in a way that made me really want to go straight into the next book. I just thoroughly enjoyed reading this book. It took me only 2 days to read, whereas the last two took me 5 days each. I honestly just ate this book up, to be honest. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Would I say it's objectively good? Not necessarily, but subjectively to me, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4 stars. I give it a 3 spice, even though it wasn't as spicy as I was expecting it to be, because this is basically why I choose Beauty and the Beast, but fae instead of like a big lion beast man. I do love a Beauty and the Beast retelling though. And yes, this felt a bit like ACOTAR, but ACOTAR is in the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, not the series as a whole. ACOTAR itself is technically a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so obviously, and because they're both fae, yeah, it felt slightly ACOTAR at some moments. Character-wise, loved all 4 of the princes. I really liked them all. I have a soft spot for the youngest one though, whose name I have forgotten because I've read other books since. What is his name? I want to say because of an F or an R. I just know he's the Autumn Prince. What's his name? Farron. Farron. I have a special place in my heart for Farron because he's the youngest. He's not dealing well with the curse that's on all 4 of the princes, and he just seems quite sweet, to be honest. This, I will say, there is no multiple party scenes technically in this book, but there is MF scenes and there is MM scenes. Yeah, Rosalina, who is the FMC, did have a weird personality shift overnight. Like, she went from being a human in the human realm, she's still a human, I don't know why I'm saying went from being a human. She went from being in the human realm, letting everyone gossip about her, basically to her face, but like behind her back. Just completely take advantage of her, steamroll her, everything. She could not stand up for herself to humans, to gossiping women. What are they gonna do? You call them out on their shit, they will scuttle off because they feel embarrassed. But she felt that she could, the next day in the Feylands, stand up to 4 different Fey men who could kill her, and for all she would know, would be happy to kill her. I just don't understand that. But then I liked her character more when she wasn't a complete wet wipe, not able to stand up for herself. So. I also like the Prince of Thorns, whose name I've forgotten. It's Caspian, I think. But he's, you know, tall, dark-haired, purple eyes, Rhysand. Is that you? How could I not like him? He calls her princess, okay? And I feel like we're meant to not like him. But there's something about him, okay, that I like him. Obviously he's the bad guy. But I'm like, is he? Is he? Because he seems to have this other agenda about her that's wanting to keep her there. So I don't think he's really the bad guy. I could be wrong. So it is my plan. I couldn't continue the rest of the series last month because then I had a reading vlog I wanted to do, and obviously I wasn't reading enough. So I'm not doing a TBR video this month, like for September. I'm just gonna mood read the whole month. So I would like to try and finish the series if I can. Next month, we'll see. Okay, next on Kindle I read On Wings of Blood by Briar Bowling. This is the first book in the Bloodwing Academy series. I have a surprisingly lengthy review for this one. I rated it 3.5 stars, a 2 chili pepper rating. I did enjoy it. I'm gonna just say that now. I did enjoy it. I loved the school setting. Again, I don't know why I love a fantasy book set in a school. I just do, okay? And the fact that you have different houses that you get sorted into, not at first, but eventually, like for your second year, it felt a bit Harry Potter-esque, to be honest. There was pretty good world building as well. I'd never felt like I was getting an overwhelming amount of information, but I also didn't feel like I didn't know anything. Aside from the fact I did feel like I didn't know anything about the FMC. Turns out this series is a spin-off series because you enter the book and she's just accidentally, without her knowledge or power, has been transported into this world. Her world is somewhere else where she was Fae, and now she is still visibly Fae but has none of her powers, has no idea how she got there. Because she, in her head, was like, I've sacrificed myself. Yeah, it turns out there is a different series. And I don't know whether the series is about her sister or if it's about her with a different first name. I really don't know. And I wasn't sort of made aware of this when I'd seen people talk about this book. I hadn't been made aware of the fact that there is a series that comes first, that from what I can tell you probably should read first, just so you actually understand the character you're with and what her backstory is. Because I read the whole book thinking, okay, I have so many questions about the FMC, none of them have been answered because the writer seemed to just assume you'd read that series. I think I would have had a better understanding of the FMC and of this series if we had a slight recap at the beginning about the FMC and her previous adventures in the original series. As a catch-up for anyone who had read the original series, but also for anyone who hadn't and maybe didn't want to read it, or at least not read it first, so we would know what was happening. So I do have a criticism about that. But in terms of, yeah, the world building with vampires, how the vampire law works and all the politics, I felt like I did have a decent grasp of this world. I just didn't have a decent grasp of the FMC and her history at all. I did like the FMC though, and I really did like her little friend group that she made, because she's put in this terrible situation. Like I said, she's suddenly been transported to this other world. A prince comes across her stark naked on a pile of bodies, and he's like, you look different, you've got red hair, you're not mortal or vampire, you're coming with me, whether you like it or not. And then gets forced into this academy. Again, she has no idea where she is, how she got there, what happened. And she's had a lot of things forced on her. I like how resilient she is as an FMC. I just wish I knew more about her. I don't think there's any vampire I trust. It's only the humans that I like. All the vampires seem a bit dodgy. I don't trust Blake. I don't particularly like him as an MMC. This was marketed as a bully romance. I would like to clarify. He wasn't really doing the bullying. It's his other betrothed and her bitchy friends. Like, she's Regina George and the other friends are just whatever the other two were called, I can't remember. So bitchy, so mean. It made me viscerally angry how everyone treat her, because like why? What's the reason? Why would you treat her so bad? And it was just stupid, petty, bitchy stuff at first, like making her go to class late or go to the wrong classes, and like just really stupid stuff. And then it got worse and worse and worse. There is a big subcontext of racism in this book, where the vampires are, not all of them, I will admit, not all of them, but a huge majority of the vampires see the mortals, I think they're called Blightborn, which doesn't make sense to me. They weren't born out of a blight. It wasn't an illness that created the mortals, it was an illness that created the vampires. Anyway, that's besides the point. A huge majority of the vampires see the mortals as less than, as animals, pretty much, and how they treat them is disgusting. And it does have this huge underlying context of its racism, basically. So I will warn you, it's quite jarring because it's quite violent in its intent and in its in practice, I suppose. I don't know if in practice is the word I was meant to say, but in practice works for what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's violent in concept, but also in practice. I don't know if concept was the word I even said before, but the word I've said listen, I don't know what's wrong with me, my brain does not work, okay? I am going through a fatigue drop, I don't know what I would call it. What do I normally, a crash? I don't know. I'm not doing well currently, and so my brain also is not working. So I'm trying as best as I can. So the vampires were all awful, don't trust them. Blake, like I said, not a good MMC. He wasn't particularly bad through most of it. Like I say, he wasn't necessarily the one bullying. He wasn't nice. He was kind of mean at some points, but it's more just he was allowing the bullying to occur. So I wouldn't say it's a bully romance, even though that's how it was described as being. I also just don't understand why or how he went from not caring one bit about her to kind of having an unhealthy, possessive obsession with her. I don't understand from his point of view. She actively didn't like him. She wasn't doing anything to make him like her. And while I like her as an FMC, I don't understand why he started liking her as a love interest. Aside from maybe he liked her determination. He was very manipulative, so manipulative. And at the end, he makes a decision and does something that is very disgusting due to consent or lack thereof. And in his mind, he's doing it for her safety and for her wellness in general. And I understand that. However, due to the act and the, like I say, lack of consent, I simply can't get on board at all with it. It's not justifiable, it's not excusable, and it made me really, really, really dislike him. So yeah, we've gone from enemies to kind of lovers to enemies again. So God knows what's going to happen in the next book, and I think it's only going to be a trilogy, I don't know. The pacing of the book, not great. It was very slow in some places. It was the middle. The middle just felt so long. The end had a lot happen, pacing picked up, it was a lot easier to read the end and like get through it. But the middle I was just like not wanting to pick the book up because it was so long and nothing was happening, there was no plot. And then the whole book we're just getting more and more questions, and we end with no answers. There's no resolution to literally anything that happened in this book, which I don't like. I understand you need to set things up for the future books for the rest of the series, but generally I think what makes a first book so good is that you get some sort of resolution to some problem. And usually you have one problem that it turns out is part of a bigger problem, but at least that problem's been fixed. And then the rest of the books or the rest of the series, whatever, is fixing this big problem. But we didn't have that. It was just, there's very clearly a terrible political situation and a terrible racial climate in this world, and there was no resolution to it at all. Nothing. If anything, everything's ended up even worse than how we started. I feel like I'm just talking about the bits I don't like about the book, but I find it easier to talk about what I don't like than what I do like. I'm giving the book a lot of grace because it's the first book in the series, and a lot of the answers we have might be answered in the second and third book, I don't know. So I am trying to give it grace, and like I said, I did enjoy the school aspect. I like the idea that hopefully this series is kind of an overhauling of a terrible political party, essentially. Yeah, I like the idea that the story seems like it's going to be the oppressed rising up against their oppressors, and I do always like that kind of series. I mean, I haven't read Hunger Games, but I do enjoy the Hunger Games movies, and that is a similar concept. So I'm giving it grace for the fact that I'm hoping book 2 will at least have some sort of resolution in it and some answers given. But yeah, there was a lot that kind of disappointed me about the book, but I did still enjoy many aspects of it, and I enjoyed reading it even though some parts were slow. I really hope Blake does something to make me actually like him and see him worthy of being a love interest, because currently I see him as a wet wipe. Well, he's not a wet wipe, he's a dickwad and an alpha hole, and I don't like him. Okay, next book, we're not doing any better. I wanted something quick and summary, so I found this book, didn't know there was going to be a fourth in this series, but I read the first 3 books last year, and this one is The Summer I Destroyed You by Elizabeth O'Rourke. It's part of a series that's just called The Summer series. Didn't know there was going to be a fourth. Couldn't remember how Liam related to the other characters previously, still don't know. I rated this at 2 stars and give it a 2 on the Chili Pepper rating. I read a little bit of it. I think I read the first 30 pages before bed one night and was thinking, I really don't like this FMC, she's a massive bitch. And then listened to the rest of it. I think I was playing Animal Crossing or doing something, but I listened to the whole thing, aside from the first 30 pages on Spotify, because I was like, well, it's the last one in the series as far as I'm aware. I don't think there's a 5th, but there could be, I didn't know there was a 4th. I was like, I just want to get it done. I just want to get it done. And listening to it was at least easier because I was doing something else. And it's the only reason I could it's the only reason I could finish it. I would have DNF'd it otherwise. Emmy is insufferable. She's the female main character. Right, okay. I have a lot of sympathy for people who were bullied in school. I was bullied in school, and I was very jaded for a long time because of it, and I had a lot of insecurities and issues because of it. However, because of it, it made me treat people with kindness. It made me feel I should be more empathetic towards people, be more patient with people, and in general, make more of an effort to treat people nicely and to treat people how I would like to be treated, because I know what it was like to just have someone be mean to you for no reason and make you feel bad for no reason. And it's not nice. And because I knew what it felt like to have someone make you feel worse than shit, I didn't want to be the kind of person who made people feel that way. And I think a lot of people who have been bullied end up that way. They end up treating people deliberately more with kindness. Emmy just became the nastiest, bitchiest, most insufferable, see you next Tuesday, that I hated her character. The only character I hated more was her mum, because the way I see it, as a woman, the one person in this world you should be able to trust to have your back 100% and understand you and your struggles as a woman is your mother. And yet this woman was fat shaming, eating disorder, pushing, just insulting. The things she said to her daughter made me want to throw her through a wall. She was absolutely disgusting. So in some ways, because of that, I understood why Emmy grew up the way she did, turned out the way she did, because she grew up with learning to put people down, because she was bullied and her mother was the worst bully of all. But also I'm like, okay, you were fat when you were younger, you've lost it now, just get over it. Like, in the nicest way. No one really cares. No one really cares if you were bullied, because everyone's got their own shit going on. And some bullying can be horrific, and the way kids can be so mean, and it can really impact people negatively. I know this myself, and we had a horrible incident at my school of a teenager who was a year or 2 below me, where the worst possible outcome did happen. And it can just be absolutely horrific. But like I say, don't treat people badly because of that. Don't have this whole revenge plan on a whole town of innocent people because of that. So I just wanted to shake her and tell her to grow the fuck up and go to therapy, because believe it or not, it's not all about you. The world does not revolve around you. And just don't add to the problem of bullying and meanness. Why would you do that? Like, it's just, she had no excuse. I'm sorry, she had no excuse to treat people like that. The people who treat her badly had no excuse to treat her badly either. But that does not give her an excuse to perpetuate that cycle of bullying. I hated her. And then we have Liam, who seemed like a decent guy. And she was mean to him from the get-go. And then she'd be like, why doesn't he like me? Is it my personality? Yes, it's your personality. Your personality is rot. Your personality is decay. It is disgusting. So yeah, I would imagine if someone didn't like you, it's because of your personality, not because of your looks. Oh, can you tell I'm getting angry? Like, rethinking the way she was with people and her mindset makes me angry. Oh yeah, but also the problem was, yeah, he did like her. He was just respecting her boundaries. She set a boundary, he kept to it, and then she'd be angry at him. Like, oh, just grow up and give yourself a knock, as my mum would say. Yeah, there was a lot of good reviews on Goodreads actually, and I don't understand how, personally. The writing itself was fine, it matched in with the rest of the series, it was easy to read, when the 30 pages I did read. Like, easy to get into storyline wise. It was the characters were terrible. The whole plot is her on this revenge plot, basically, and it's stupid. And then the romance was severely lacking. It was all Luke being overly committed to someone who didn't want or deserve it. Didn't want it for most of the book, didn't deserve it for the whole book. He was just the only one putting in any effort through the whole book. She didn't put any effort in at all, in my opinion. And then on his end, I think the only reason he really put effort in was because she interested him and he was desperate to be loved, because he didn't want to be... He had this thing where no one found him for a few days when he fell on a job, because he's like a workman person. And he was basically desperate to not die and have no one find him. So really, he just found the first person that actually interested him, and out of desperation to be loved, kind of put everything on her. So it just wasn't a compatible or believable love story. And the smut, boring and lacking. There was no foreplay. It was wham bam, thank you ma'am. It was, we're started, I'm in. Literally, no foreplay, which is so boring. So I didn't like Liam for any, like, he had no, like, quality that made me think he's a good romantic lead. And then for this meant to be a summer book, there was no summer in it, aside from that it was briefly mentioned a few times that it was hot. So yeah, overall a very, very, very disappointing book. As I'm talking about it, 2 stars is probably being generous. Okay, next I read Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I have been looking forward to this book since the last one came out. I have been just waiting for this book, and I rated it a 3.75 and a 1 chili pepper rating. There is a more YA sort of smutty scene in this. It's a funny one. I think I finally decided the age rating for this series is not quite a YA, not quite an adult, it's somewhere in between, because my god, is it horny. But it's not explicit in any way, it's just horny. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it wouldn't have made sense for it to have had an explicit sex scene. I think the way she wrote it was perfect for the it just fit in with the series. It didn't feel like it was out of place. It didn't feel like it was too much or too little. I think how she wrote it was how it needed to be. They're very horny, especially this book. It was very horny. I did enjoy it. I love this series. I love these characters. I love being in this world, and it's always a good, entertaining time. I will say that ending, that cliffhanger is going to haunt me. I'm going to think about that a lot. I have so many questions. And I'm going to have to wait like at least a year for any answers, because I thought this was the 3rd and final book. I thought it was a trilogy. We were proven wrong. There was going to be another book. I'm hoping that will be the end of it. I do think this book should have been the end of it, in all honesty. I think it's dragging on now for no reason. And I'm hoping she leaves it at 4 books and just wraps everything up with a nice little bow, and it's not too big. I mean, they're all like decently small books, like under 400 pages. I just don't want her to drag it out and ruin the series. I think my main The reason why this is not my favourite of the series is because this has been a very slow burn romance between Evie and Tristan, and the back and forth in this was ridiculous. It was Evie throwing herself at him being like, I want you so bad but we can't do this. Her then being like, oh, I'm really embarrassed, he doesn't want me. Of course he doesn't want me. Or him saying something stupid and her being like, of course he doesn't want me. And then it all happening again. A couple times here and there, like an almost something or the start of something, and then something happens 1 or 2 times, perfectly fine. 5+ is ridiculous. I don't know if it's specifically 5+, it feels like it. I'm fairly sure it is. It was too much of a will they won't they, because it's not even a will they won't they, we know that they will, it's a romantasy. It was annoying, it was repetitive and it was annoying. So it did drag the rating down a little bit for me. But overall, I love this series. It's so fun. And I am looking forward to finding out what happens in the next book. Next, I read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I rated this 4 stars and a 1 chili pepper rating because sex is kind of mentioned, it's glazed over a lot at the beginning and then through, like, well, I suppose all the way through the book. It's very, in some, depending on who it's with, it's written very lyrically and beautifully and, but again, not really much detail. This whole book is written very lyrically. It's got a lot of flowery writing. I did start annotating it, but then I feel like I needed more brain power to continue annotating it. So I'll go back at some point and annotate the whole thing. But there was, especially in Alice's point of view, just a lot of really good moments that I thought, wow, this just is very beautifully written. This book is kind of like if The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson had a baby, because it's got the similar vampire feel and toxicity of A Diary of Blood, but it's got that similar for Maria and Charlotte, 2 of the characters. They felt a lot like Addie LaRue in their dislike for how their lives would be set out for them as women in the 15, 16, 17, 1800s, where they were obviously expected to marry very young and be a good little wife and have multiple children and carry on a family line and all this kind of stuff. And neither of them wanted that, same as Addie did not want that, ran away from it, made drastic decisions because of it. And Maria did very similar, and Charlotte also. So it did feel very similar vibe-wise to Addie LaRue. The only difference is Addie LaRue, I had such an emotional connection to her, and this, I was rooting for her the whole time, whereas I didn't really have any emotional connection to any of the characters. Maria is the toxic lesbian vampire. Okay, everyone says this book is toxic lesbian vampires, and it is, but she is the toxic lesbian vampire. And at first you are rooting for her, and then you get to a point where you're like, you are not a good person. And then Charlotte I really liked her character at first, and at first I was rooting for her, and then the way she changes and what she becomes, I just didn't agree with. And then you've got Alice, who I am rooting for her at the end, but we don't get enough time with her, which is a shame. I would say this book tackles vampires in a very unsexy way, because there's a big emphasis on rotting from the inside, and the longer that you're a vampire and the more that you give in to that insatiable hunger and that more carnal side, the more your humanity will get stripped away and you just become someone almost animalistic and completely inhuman. And every bit that makes you just eventually gets stripped away. And it even shows vampires who are starting to rot from the inside, when they're killed, how much is left of them compared to a maybe newer vampire is less. It's visibly, like, it shows in your death how much you've rotted away by how much of you is even left. It just ends up sparking a conversation about eternal life and whether and what it means, and whether it actually really is eternal, especially if you then you lose completely who you are, and whether what you gain from becoming a vampire is worth it, and in fact maybe you lose more than you gain. And then so this book is very character driven. You're following these characters through their life. There's not really a plot between that. You're following them through hundreds of years and them their lives eventually intertwining. But a big component of this book is hunger, and I mean that in the literal sense of these vampires have an insatiable hunger. They have an unfillable well of hunger in them. The more they feed, the hungrier they are. They never feel satiated. And it shows that it's a parallel between when they're human, they have, I'm going to put this down, they have this hunger for more. They have a hunger for love, they have a hunger for freedom. Just in general, they hunger for more. They need more. And they will never be satisfied. They'll never feel contentment in where they're at and what they have. And so them as humans, and then the parallel between that hunger and then the hunger that will never be filled, as a vampire, I really like that. There's a lot of, the way this has been written has been very intelligent, and the parallels it's drawn between the human experience and then the metaphor of being a vampire. It's just done so well. It's done so with such intelligence. And then of course obviously there's the conversation about patriarchy and feminism, and a conversation of how women lived in the past and currently in the present, and dealing with that kind of, with those problems. There's a lot of topics broached in this book, and I think there is a lot of metaphors in that within the vampire experience. So yeah, I did really enjoy it. I just think because the reason it's not a 5 stars is because I didn't feel that emotional connection to the characters like I wanted to. But overall, it was so good, and I'm definitely going to go back and reread this and annotate it because, like I said, the writing was just beautiful. Oh, I feel like I've had a lot to talk about these books this month. Like, wow. I feel like I've been talking for ages. Anyway, the final book I read this month was Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. I read this on Kindle because I've not been able to find it in store anywhere. I love this series. It's the Vancouver Storm series. This is book 4. I rated it 4 stars and a 2.5 chili pepper rating. It wasn't as spicy as the other books, I don't think. So this one I was very excited for because it's Alexei, who is, I want to say he's a defenseman of the hockey team, and then Georgia, who is one of the team doctors and also an orthopedic doctor in a hospital that's like nearby. And we know from the previous books that they absolutely hate each other, cannot stand each other, and yet we get at the end of the 3rd book a cliffhanger of, oh yeah, we're married. So this book is Marriage of Convenience. We've got Alexei needing his green card for him and his parents, really, because his contract runs out, and if he hasn't got a work visa with the hockey team, he's stuck having to go home. So he's wanting his actual citizenship sorted out before his time with the hockey team ends, because he is older for a hockey player, and he's like, I could have one bad injury and that's it. I might not even get to live out the last 3 years of my contract. I need this sorted. And then Georgia needs to get married, because if she gets married, she gets her inheritance, and her inheritance is going to be used towards this research program that she's doing at the hospital, which is something that's very close to her heart. So they decide, obviously, they both need to get married for different reasons. They marry each other even though they hate each other. This book possibly would have been a 5 stars if the first half was like the second half, because the second half was so good. But right, I read this in one day. I ate this book up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so easy, so entertaining to read. But I hated how Alexei was at the first half of the book, because they were both mean to each other. They both didn't like each other, don't get me wrong. But Alexei was just this other level of mean that was completely unnecessary. He was so prejudiced against her and so ignorant about who she really was. He had this idea of who she was in his head, didn't like it, and so he just treated her that way, even though he did not know a thing about her, and every single prejudice he had was wrong. So he was so ignorant, so mean. I just didn't like him at first, okay? And yeah, I love Georgia. She was mean occasionally too, but it was always provoked. But she was just she's this independent, hardworking, motivated, deeply caring person who just happens to love buying herself pretty things and loves wearing high heels and feeling good about herself. I just love her. She was so relatable. She was so likable. And that's also annoyed me because she's such a likable character. How could Alexei not like her? But then when he finds out that he was wrong and he just this change. He just becomes a much better man, and he starts, he knows, so his mom's a florist, so he knows flower meanings, and he starts communicating his feelings to her through the flowers. And at first it's like an inside joke to himself. He doesn't know that she's from this book, and so he's just being like mean just to himself, like, and she finds it funny. Like, they start getting this banter, but then he starts actually sending her flowers about how he really feels, and he sends her flowers like every day, and they've all got different meanings, and it's just so cute. And they had such good banter. It was really fun. It was really enjoyable to read. There was no third act breakup, thank God. I hate them. So yeah, the first part, it was his attitude that brought the rating down, but the whole book was so entertaining. I love how Stephanie Archer writes her characters, how she writes her banter, the whole team and their wives, I just love them. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next one as well. We know who the next book's going to be about. So yes, that's all I have to say about that one. Okay, I didn't do my stats this month. I read 2 Mafia, 4 fantasy, and 2 regular romance. And then I don't know how many pages. I can't be able to work that out right now. Yeah, it's been a weird month, like I say. I don't know why. I just haven't had... I think because I'm so tired at the moment, I haven't had any sort of mental capacity to really enjoy the books I'm reading. Aside from Bonded by Thorns and Gloves Off, those 2 books just felt so easy for me to read. I've just felt it difficult to read this month, and I haven't had the same enjoyment. Even though I've had some decent reads this month, don't get me wrong, this month just hasn't been as good as last month, and it's disappointing, but it happens. I think because I enjoy Gloves Off so much and read that so easy, that's a good start for next month. Fingers crossed. I'm just going to mood read next month, see what happens, and not put any pressure on myself because of how this month has gone. 8 books is still good. It's just the overall enjoyment and the immersion with the reading I've really struggled with. That being said, I'm gonna go. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!